Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was going to defer most of it anyway.
The first two, you don't
We're
get.
live.
Well, general assistance, I thought I could defer.
Okay, welcome everyone to our regularly scheduled GovUp meeting for tonight, Monday, December 4th. Voting members on this committee are Councillor Fish, Councillor Hawes, Councillor Schaefer, who is not here now with us, and Councillor Trimble, myself, Councillor Yaqub Aga, and at the table we have Councillor Leonard and Councillor Chair Peltier. We also have City Manager Debbie Laurie and the Finance Head Dave Little, who is gonna walk us through the government operations overview.
Thank you. I am filling in for Courtney tonight. So our first item is the Government Ops Committee overview. And so the Government Ops Committee, starting this year, will meet once a month, typically the first Monday. That will change and as needed, of course. And the 5-member committee, with 3 being a quorum, but this committee typically handles items related to the clerk's office, the police, fire, health and community services, Parks and Rec, harbor, and administrative services. And anything that relates to those council orders, ordinances, resolves that relate to those departments, or would be recommended to this council, and then if needed, go on to the full council for final approval. This committee would also handle any type of rental or lease regarding property or land that is operated by any of those departments, and would send that on to the full council for approval as well. You'll be discussing in detail at various times, I believe, anything that has to do with parking and the downtown parking management. That's always a good time for everybody. And anything that relates to, what's that?
Parking and downtown management should go to B&ED.
She has it in here.
Yeah, I was surprised when I saw that.
Well, we will follow up on that.
Yeah, that one doesn't seem right.
Okay. Maybe you don't have to do that. And intergovernmental affairs. And we also would come to this committee for any type of insurance claims that relate to lesser than $50,000 on property damage, self-insurance claims not exceeding $10,000 that you guys can act on without further action by the council.
Okay, any questions? Yeah.
Just really quick, because we're only gonna be meeting once a week, what's the
Once a
process? I'm sorry, thank you, once a month. What is the process going to be for when we need to request an additional meeting?
So I would say that you would reach out to Courtney, the assistant city manager, or the city manager through the chair. And they would determine whether or not that meeting needed to be held. Obviously, if it needs to, then we would look at putting that meeting, either a special meeting or putting it on to the odd week with finance and business and economic development.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
I guess we can move to the second item on the agenda, general assistance overview, and we have Randy Fogler from Department of Public Health.
She never really.
I never
I love that. I love to see you back.
Like a bad penny.
Oh, you're a good penny.
What can I do for you? Do you want an overview or do you?
Yeah, so I think you guys have put together the
Yep, we did.
stuff in the packet and I
Yep.
think it's just to talk about the process, the rules,
Okay.
sort of what works, what doesn't work.
Okay, so the information that was given to you, we actually put together 2 pieces of information. One is sort of an overview of what general assistance is and how it operates and how people apply and that sort of thing. The second piece that we put together is some of the issues that arise most frequently around municipality of responsibility and what happens if a municipality from another part of the state co-locate someone in Bangor who doesn't necessarily belong in Bangor and how the rules of GA apply in that instance. So we provided that as well. But I'm just going to talk first about just a real general overview. And so basically Bangor, like every municipality in the state of Maine, has a general assistance program. By law, every municipality has to either have their own program or they have to contract with someone to administer a program for them. In some of the unorganized territories, the state actually does it. But for the most part, every municipality has their own GA program. In many instances, it's run by someone who is also the clerk, the tax collector, the animal control officer, the fire warden. It's many times it's the city clerk who does it, quite honestly. Just to give you a sense of the scope of our program, we have 3 full-time caseworkers and 1 full-time administrative assistant. To date in FY24, we've seen 612 clients and expended a little over $526,000 in general assistance benefits. The vast majority of the vouchers that we grant are for rent, by far. We take applications during normal business hours, but our program, as well as every program in the state, must be available 24/7. So we have a system set up with the police department, and we have a notice on our front door facing the public that says if you're here after hours and you have an emergency, it gives them the police non-emergency line. And they will call the caseworker on call, and that person will then reach out to the person in crisis. And quite honestly, there's not a whole lot we can do at 2:00 in the morning. We can't get oil delivered. We can't do a whole lot for people in the middle of the night, but we do have to be there, and we are. There's a misnomer around in some municipalities that they set their GA budget and they can't extend beyond that limit. That is not the case. You have to put together a GA budget, but you have to expend whatever you need to expend to meet the needs of your population. So if a community says our GA budget is $5,000 and we've already expended it, sorry, we can't help you, that's not okay.
They're violating the law.
They're violating the law. Yeah, absolutely, they're violating the law. So our GA program submits reports to the Maine Department of Health and Human Services every month, and they reimburse us for 70%. Yes.
Just a question, you said you're violating the law, Well, who enforces it? Why do they have, everybody says, oh, they violate the law, and it just
The
goes
state
by,
is
no,
supposed, the
but
state,
nobody does anything about it, do they?
the state is supposed to enforce
I
that
know,
law.
but does there any
Not that I'm
consequences for anybody? No.
No. So we get reimbursed 70% for expenditures to clients. There's no reimbursement for administrative costs or things like interpreters or administrative support or anything like that. It's purely the money that goes out the door for clients. To be eligible for GA, there's a process that applicants need to go through. If it's in a non-emergency situation, they just need their monthly rent, they need a food voucher, they call, they make an appointment, and they're seen by one of the 3 caseworkers. We don't have, as caseworkers, a specific caseload, so I don't see John Doe every month. I might see John Doe this month, and Mary will see him next month. It sort of works better if we do it that way. Clients who have an emergency, like an imminent eviction, a utility shut off, we will see them the same day. We'll figure out a way to squeeze them in. We do all appointments over the phone. That started during COVID, and we found that it worked quite well. Clients actually love it because they don't have to deal with navigating the bus and transportation and dealing with kiddos and what do you do with your kiddos when you have a GA appointment. So we have opted to stay with that, and it's worked very well. There are materials that people have to provide to us, be it pay stubs or an eviction notice or proof that they're applying for Social Security. We just ask them to provide them to us. They either drop them off at the office. We now have a portal on the website where they can upload materials, they can fax them to us, they can email to us. So it really hasn't proven to be a barrier at all for people to get that information to us. I did happen to mention that clients don't have to have IDs. We ask for them if they have them, but that's not a prerequisite. If there's a client who doesn't have an ID, it would not preclude them from getting GA.
And when, I know you get documentation and stuff, but when they come in and say, I come in and apply and say, okay, you're eligible, we get the pay stubs. Do you say, Oh, you take advantage of this program and like, you get it.
Oh,
from stamps and-
absolutely,
And if
absolutely.
they're not, you get them lined up.
Absolutely. Like I spoke to a gentleman today who, before we will help him again, he needs to apply for LIHEAP, he needs to apply for SNAP, and he needs to apply for main care. So if at his next month's appointment, he can't provide proof to us that he has done those three things, he won't, excuse me, he won't get assistance until he does. So we try, they say that general assistance is and should be a program of last resort. So we try to make sure that they're reaching out to whatever other resources they possibly can. And that includes resources in our own building, WIC and the public health nurses and that sort of
I
thing.
have a question, please.
Yes,
So it's limited, they can't have like resource forever, so there has to be, is it like for a few months?
well, it is not limited, actually. It's not limited, but I did run a report this morning just because I'm always curious about this. And I ran the last 5 fiscal years. And in the last 5 fiscal years, 81% of our clients have had assistance for 5 months or less.
Okay, that's a good,
92% or a year or less.
92.
So really the only people who we have for a long period of time are those folks who are applying for Social Security.
Okay.
And that's a process that takes years.
Yeah.
And I have a couple of questions.
Yes,
So would you say the majority of the people that are getting GA now are people in apartments that need help to stay in the apartments?
absolutely.
And so GA for the assistance is primarily for the people that are having difficulty staying in their house and not, I think some people have a misconception that some of this money is for the unsheltered people, but they're two completely different things.
It's two completely different things. We do, again, looking at the numbers from the last 5 fiscal years, we helped 805 people who were homeless. So that might have been, we helped them with a clothing voucher, or, I mean, obviously we weren't helping them with a rent voucher if they were homeless. Although if a client comes in and they're homeless and says, I have found an apartment and will you help me with my first month's rent? We check a box that says they're homeless at the time. So of those 805, 800 of them may be housed at this point in time, but
And if there's a law or a rule that says that we can't turn them away, yet other communities, it's a known fact, are sending them here. Do you have any ideas of how we as a city, instead of taking the burden on of what other people are supposed to be doing and are not, with your experience, do you have any ideas?
Oh, I have lots of, I have lots of ideas. Let me explain to you first. I think this will be helpful to explain how the state audit is done. So our programs, all the GA programs in the state are audited each year by the state. What that consists of is they come in and they audit your client records. So they come in and they pull a client file and they say, okay, you helped Counselor Fish and you helped her with $750 for rent and you gave her a food voucher. Yes, that was appropriate. That's all they do. What doesn't happen is if there's a municipality who helps 10 people and turns away 100, they only have 10 files for the state to go through. There's no record of those 100 people that got turned away. And I don't exactly know how to fix that, but the audit system, in my mind, is sorely lacking because it only shows what communities are doing. It doesn't show what they're neglecting to do. I don't know if that makes sense, but and the other thing, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. The other thing that's happening right now, and there's a work session in Augusta next week. There's a bill in the legislature right now to make it so that if a municipality moves, there's a difference between if I'm across the bridge and of my own volition, I walk to Bangor GA and say, I need help, Bangor is responsible. If I have no other place to live, Bangor is responsible. If the city of Brewer or the city of Old Town or the city of Millinocket or the city of Wood Pitlock puts somebody in a car, buys them a bus ticket, puts them in a cab, does anything of that nature and sends them to our municipality for help, they are still technically responsible. If they facilitated that move, we're not responsible.
That's in theory.
That's in theory.
Correct.
In
Right.
That's in
reality,
theory.
it's not.
We still
Right.
pay. We still
We
help
still,
them.
right.
But it's really not in theory. We know it's happening.
Yeah, but
So what do we do to come up with a program to better monitor and assess what's happening on our streets? Because we want to take care, nobody should be on the street. We all agree to that. And so we have to come up, if the legislature doesn't have guidelines to enforce their laws, so other towns are violating them, then maybe we as a city have to come up with an assessment to help make other towns more
Mhm.
accountable.
yes, Councilor Leonard.
Actually, on that point, on receiving other individuals who are in the realm of poverty, coming from other municipalities or even in our own or even in our own neighborhood. I've been talking with a few other municipal leaders regarding GA funds that don't necessarily have the same dollar amount that we have. That I'm not going to name which municipalities and which leaders have said this, but a lot of their GA funds sometimes just go unspent entirely. And so I guess my question is, and you know, please correct me for the record, but do we have any sort of outreach for any of these municipalities in terms of trying to organize their GA and our GA to collaborate with other municipalities to also track individuals that are receiving these funds?
No, there is no formal method of tracking. That's one of the things that the Maine Welfare Directors has asked for, and that's going to be considered as part of this legislation that's going to be in the work session next week, is that there is some sort of collaboration between municipalities, so we know from whence people came and where they're headed. I can tell you from experience that it's not a pleasant conversation when you call a municipality and say, hey, I got John here in my office and he tells me that he just came from your shop. It doesn't go well.
So, okay, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I've seen some of those.
Yes, it doesn't go well at all.
So I guess, you know, I don't want to speak out of turn, but it feels like a lot of this networking has to really start from the leadership level to like right here from council to make sure that this actually does start to communicate effectively that we need to collaborate more on these regional crises affecting us, because it's causing a lot more chaos for our emergency workers, our crisis workers, and our social and healthcare system. So I guess what my question to you is, what is something that council can do right now to either start that process to create a better collaboration with these municipalities, or what are some things that we can do to ease the workload on the chaos that comes from GA assistance funds? For example, would a council liaison program to other municipalities, like assigning a counselor to like one municipality in our surrounding area, would that be somewhat effective?
So,
Like an outreach workshop, Council Leonard, are you thinking like an outreach workshop where we could work collaboratively, several communities?
Sure, I think that's at this point necessary in order to respond to the crisis, especially working with our county commissioners in this regard as well.
Yeah, because I think one liaison with one municipality is not enough. We're dealing with a few of them, like, you know, around the Bangor area, greater Bangor area. And
But even up in Lincoln and Millinocket, I mean, they have zero social services up there, and they are in dire needs and they do not know what to do. And I know we're struggling right here in this city, but at least we have services. At least we have some sort of general social assistance 101 plan. They don't have nearly the same amount of resources that we do here. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that would be helpful if we started that coordination communication.
I'm going to let Debbie take this,
Sure.
but I do want to say one thing, and that is, in the 18 some odd years that I've been working for the city and in GA much of that time, I have felt very supported, very much a counselor that wanted to help its council that wanted to help its residents, a council that believed the general assistance program was here for a reason. When you attend general assistance trainings that are put on by the Maine Welfare Directors Association, it would blow your mind, because the mindset of the vast majority of the municipalities is what can we do so we don't have to help? How can we find this person ineligible? You know, we're not taking people with black hair today. I'm not kidding. They really do come up with some crazy reasons why they won't help people. And Bangor just has a different mentality. So I think while reaching out to other municipalities is a great idea, unless you can change that culture, I think it's going to be a pretty tough sell.
I get that, but we don't really have a choice. We have to start somewhere.
So, and I was just gonna add, so to a couple of points. So the Hub 7 coordinator, the Built for Zero Hub coordinator, I know that that individual has worked to try to connect with individual municipalities. I haven't spoken to that individual, but my assumption is that perhaps wasn't always
I don't know. I
collaborative
don't know the
either.
answer to that.
But what I will say is there are a number, so next Monday pre-council, we're gonna go through all of the carryover bills. There are a number of carryover bills related to general assistance. And we submitted testimony in support of a number of them. And I think that's a great kicking off point for how do we start to engage. And I'm not to steal Council Chair Pelletier's thunder here, but there was some conversation about 2 or 3 years ago, we used to get together with the city of Brewer, the city of Bangor, and all of our legislative delegation. And that may be the mechanism to help start spreading that word. Interestingly enough, Penobscot County, other than the unorganized township, plays absolutely no role in general assistance. So you're asking 400 and how many? 400 and however many municipalities.
62?
400 I was gonna say 90.
I don't know.
However many it is,
About.
462 municipalities to operate a program that the state has determined how it's gonna run, what the eligibility is, and what's acceptable and what isn't. So to move this up, don't know if this is a popular opinion or not, but to move this up out of the local government to a higher level of government has always made more sense to me because there is economy of scales. So either at the county level, the state DHHS office, they do all kinds of things. Why can't they do GA? And then that would ensure that everybody in this state is treated equitably and fairly. So, little
No,
rant,
that's good.
little rant there.
Yeah. So, I mean, we interrupted, we have tons of questions. And
No,
I know
just-
there's a lot more to it.
I don't even know where I left off. Let me run down through here real quickly. Eligibility is determined on a monthly basis, so people have to apply every 30 days. And like I said, they're generally given some sort of assignment, if you will, to bring back material or to do a job search, a work search, or to go to their medical provider and provide documentation as to why they're applying for Social Security. There's usually something for them to do in the interim.
Randy, on that matter about every 30 days, obviously somebody that's applying is probably pretty stressful about needing money. How long is the process once you apply on Monday? Do you know by Wednesday? And
Oh,
when
if you
get-
apply
I
on Monday,
know rent
10
checks go directly to the landlord, right?
correct.
So
So-
the other benefits would go right to the
Yes,
individual.
if a client has an appointment today at 10 o'clock, by 11 o'clock, they're gonna know what they're getting. Their vouchers are either gonna be mailed to them or 9 times out of 10, they come to the office and pick them up.
Oh, they can get it right.
Yeah. They can get them right there. So it's a pretty fast process. There are maximums that the state establishes. You'll hear that term thrown around, the maximum. Well, the maximums that the state establishes tells us how much we can pay based on household size. So for Bangor, I was gonna bring copies and I didn't, I apologize. But for Bangor, for a household of 1, which is many of our clients, the maximum that they could get for benefits is $886. Taken out of that is any income that they have. So if somebody makes $500, they would only be eligible for $386. Does that make sense? And then the higher the household size, the higher the maximum benefit. What's become problematic, not only in Bangor, but everywhere across the state, is that housing costs are so expensive that there's nothing left over. I mean, there are people renting rooms in Bangor, rooms for $750, $800. And that leaves, if it's someone who doesn't have their SNAP benefits yet, doesn't have any way to buy shampoo and deodorant and toilet bowl cleaner, it leaves them with next to nil to be able to do that. So that's a challenge for all of the programs. We help with all sorts of things: rent, food, household products, laundry, community connector tickets, clothing, burials. Some people don't think about. We spent about $80,000 in burials just last year. Benefits are in the form of a voucher, so there's no cash that exchanges hands. There's no EBT card sort of thing. It is a voucher that is taken to the vendor, generally Shaw's, Hannaford, Goodwill, or the landlord. And as I mentioned before, our clients generally fall into two categories: those who are able to work and those who are unable to work. Those who have the ability to work, so they haven't provided us with a medical notice saying they can't, they have to complete a work search log every month, and we spot check those. So they have to tell us, I applied at this place on this date, and I talked to this individual, and this is the position I applied for, and we will call and double check on that and make sure that hopefully people are being honest. And then the other clients are the ones who are applying for Social Security, and they just have to provide for us proof that they are going through the process, that they're filing their appeals and they're getting an attorney when the time comes to get an attorney. The vast majority of the long timers are the people applying for Social Security, and once they ultimately get it, which most do, the city is actually reimbursed 100% for what we've expended during the time that they were applying. So sometimes that adds up to a fair amount of money. So that's sort of the basic overview. I don't know what other questions you have. Yep.
So this year, I believe it was over 500,000, the figure we've spent in our GA. How would you say that figure compares to, in the past 5 or 10 years? And I think you've been with us, during that spell and longer. How does that compare to past?
It's actually, I think it's a little
Yeah,
low.
I thought it was low.
Yeah, if you, COVID really changed things. Number one, a lot of our people, I say our people, a lot of the people who apply for general assistance benefits who have been not highly sought after in the job market are now more highly sought after. So we've got more people who are finding employment. You know, it used to be harder to find a job, and now there's jobs everywhere, and we're really pushing people to get them. So I think that's played a role in that. And when the ERA program that Penquis administered was paying the rent, that of course dropped our expenditures way down, and some people just never came back. Don't know where they went. That's always been sort of a head scratcher.
And the state reimbursement, did that change? It says 70%. Now, didn't used to be a higher percentage. Didn't we get 90% at one time from the state? And but they capped it at a certain
So,
level?
yeah, so what it used to be is you had to, once you spent a certain dollar amount, like a percentage of your overall state equalized value, you got a certain,
90%.
you got 90%.
Right.
So it was a split.
Okay.
They're talking about going
Agree.
back to 90.
Oh, yeah, I know that this figure did seem low because I know not in the last few years, but if you look back quite a few years ago, it seemed like we were always a little bit over $1 million or so. I thought that GA.
Mhm.
So some years closer to, yeah.
Two.
So I'm talking
Like three.
like a long time ago.
I picked up 2012, we were almost we were $2 to $3
Yeah.
million in that time frame. Yep.
I wasn't here then.
Okay, that was the year you were away. Sorry.
I mean, there was a time we had 4 caseworkers working right flat out and still it would take a couple or 3 weeks to get an appointment. So, and now we're down to 3 caseworkers and a little more breathing room. So it's changed.
So I would like to say if we can come out of this with an action plan.
Yes, I agree.
Because, I mean, we can talk
Yeah.
about this, but yeah, how?
Okay.
So action plan, you said it's better to be at the state level.
Mhm.
So what's the recommendation here? How can we proceed from here?
Would you like us to pull together sort of a draft based on the testimony of the bills that we've submitted?
Yes.
And we can make that part of the legislative update on Monday as a good starting point?
Sounds good.
Okay,
I would be willing to donate extra time, whatever you need.
We'll send you on a road show. We'll send anybody who wants to go on a road show. We'll arm you
Oh,
with good
absolutely.
information.
And so you don't think it's gonna be useful to reach out to neighboring municipalities, not even neighboring, I mean, other municipalities who send, their unhoused individuals here?
Yeah, I don't think anything hurts.
Okay,
I think, and it's just the mechanism by which we do it. So that it views as, for example, I just got it today from Patty Hamilton, sort of a list of all of the warming shelters across the state and sort of access to other resources. And maybe if we could bundle it in, this is what you can do to help individuals in your community, and here are all of the resources.
okay.
Maybe some kind of training or educational workshop that can help them help themselves.
They know it, but they don't know that. Yeah, Councilor Leonard?
So in regards to reaching out to other municipalities on this subject matter, a liaison program, there are already municipalities that I have talked to that are open to establishing such a connection and communication to start addressing some of these crises. In general, though, putting aside the crisis that is homelessness and housing issues, there are in general a lot of benefits to having a liaison program with our surrounding municipalities. For example, I'll just use Herman as an example. Herman is very supportive of passenger rail coming up here. And if we were to coordinate with that municipality more, we could potentially form a dual alliance if we as a council want to work with them to also show our joint support for a feasibility study for passenger rail to come up here to Bangor. That's just one example, though. There are many different towns that share a lot of similarities with that. I think a liaison program assigning with each councilor at least one municipality to maintain contact with that council, it would present a lot of opportunities that would normally not necessarily come to this table if we did not have those programs. I'm sorry, relationships.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't anything new with neighboring towns and people Bangor. I know somebody that was a first selectman in a town, pretty close to Bangor, probably 30 or 40 years ago. And he would, about the fact that people would come to the town office for general assistance. He said, well, we can give you a little bit, but you'd be much better off if you went down to Bangor. They can really help you out in town, yeah. So, I mean, I think we're frustrated by what's happening in the towns, and we can spend a lot of energy trying to get other towns, but I don't think it's gonna change. I think our best bet is to try to get the way it's administered change. If we can get either a regional or state approach to general, I'd rather see our efforts go into that. I mean, we can still do something, but I just don't see a lot of results coming out of
You're
that.
saying see it enforced that the towns take.
Well, not so
their
much enforcement, no, that we're not administering. That's either a county administration or it's done by the state through the wealth, state
DHS.
DHS instead of at the city level. It's fair to everybody that way, and
Yeah, I mean, in my 2 years on the council, I think we were so distracted with a lot of other issues, ARPA, and I, like, we suggested this when we started, when I started 2 years ago, and we never worked on it to reach out to neighboring municipalities. We've never had the chance to do it. I feel it doesn't hurt, because I mean, if you want to put every effort to address this problem, I feel it does not hurt to do this liaison program. I mean, I feel there is more energy like now to address this. We have more, I think, time, given we're almost done with ARPA. So, I mean, if there is enough support on the council to move ahead with this, I would definitely recommend it as well.
when Councilor Davitt, the year she was chair, she did, City Manager Conlow tried to get a group together to just talk about it. And she asked me to join the meeting. I went, and I think Orono was. Actually show up to it. So, you could be a dentist and try to pull teeth, but I mean.
I think it's worth it to give it a shot. I feel like time has changed now, and we are talking more and more about this. And we have the problem. I feel like we feel the impact of this problem. So maybe it's worth it to give it a shot.
And we can always, as individual counselors for our liaison programs, go to the municipality itself that we are assigned to just to start a conversation. Because if we say, hey, come here, and we don't put that extra foot forward, they might just think it's a dog and pony show. So that establishing that relationship and making sure we build that qualitative connection is very important if we actually want to pursue any linked goals between the two municipalities or multiple municipalities.
Councillor Fox?
Two things. I completely agree that we need to start working at the county and the state level. And that should be like sooner rather than later, get the legislators on board. And we've tried to do that before too, but at least we can keep pecking at them. The liaison proposal is not a bad proposal, but I think we need to be cautious. Because if I go to Herman, for example, just because they're close, and I talk to only one person that's on their board, then how do they know what the reaction of their whole board is going to be? I just think we have to have some parameters set, and what is our discussion going to be? Let them know that, and we either have to say that this is council approved or not, but we're here to help, or however you want to do it. We just need to have some guidelines. Sure. We start going willy-nilly, they're gonna have our heads on a stick. And we've tried before, and I'm not saying we shouldn't try again, but I think we need to be organized and know exactly what we're doing, and be careful that we're not talking to them about, for example, their fire department or their police department compared to ours, because that would be totally different than what we're trying to accomplish. We just need to be careful, that's all.
I agree, and I feel maybe it's more impactful to have multiple councillors, maybe a couple at least, and the city manager. I mean, I'm just now assigning you more.
I felt
things
that.
to do. Yeah,
She knew that was coming.
and to have some points of
Sure.
discussions, and absolutely agree. Any other questions, suggestions? Randy, I can share. When I was home, I had tons of questions. I come back with those questions.
I was gonna say, and
Anytime.
if you walk away from these sessions with questions, then it's likely other people did. So even just shoot me an email, even if it's just 3 words, because I do that. I send myself emails that have 3 words because I'm gonna forget if I don't do it right now.
Yeah.
And we can sort through that and circle back, but we will have the discussion about carry forward legislation next week. There were a lot of items related to GA, and it's not a legislative work. I mean, it's not a committee workshop.
It's a committee, the Health and Human Services.
Is it the Health
Committee
and Human Services?
is meeting next
Okay.
week. Yeah,
So we'll know, that's on the 14th, I
it's on the
think.
14th.
Yeah, so we'll have a little bit more coming out of that, and
Doesn't somebody from Bangor chair that committee? Is one of our reps chair that?
Joe Wallach, Senator.
Oh, Joe has one.
Senator Baldacci, thank you. Try that again.
thank you, Randy.
You're welcome.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Right, and now we move to our next item on the agenda.
You don't have a swag.
Thanks.
Chief,
Fire chief
Right.
Higgins.
Yeah.
I will admit, I read this memo a couple of
Thank you.
times. I
You did?
think I get it, but I'm gonna turn it over to the chief. And he's probably gonna turn it over to one of his guys.
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. I'm Tom Higgins. I'm the fire chief, and we do a couple of items on the agenda tonight. Deputy Chief Pelletier is going to talk about the first one.
Nope. So for many, many years now, we've been licensed at the paramedic level. So anytime an ambulance rolls out the door for an EMS call, we have to have a paramedic on the truck. What we're looking to do is to drop our license level down to the basic level and permit to the paramedic level. What that does, it allows us more flexibility to keep trucks responding. Right now, if we don't have a paramedic and we can't get anybody on, there's a potential that we're going to have to have a truck down. And several communities around are struggling as it is to provide ambulance services. So we don't plan on changing our operational model. We still plan on keeping our medics that we have available to go on these calls. But in the event that we can't or have anybody available, we would be able to at least respond at the basic level. There's a tiered response, and the national model has a tiered response. So you start at the lowest level care. You had mentioned the dentist earlier. When you go to the dentist, you start out with a hygienist. You don't have the dentist with you all the time. So it's kind of the same way this way. Like I said, we're not gonna plan on changing our operational model. This just allows us more flexibility that we still be able to provide, the basic level of care. If, it is a serious call, like I said, that tiered response, we would still have an engine company responding, and there's a high likelihood that we'd at least have a medic on the engine. So it's not like we wouldn't have a medic available to us. Another benefit, due to our proximity to the hospitals, that could also be a closest ALS source if needed as well. So that's just pretty much it in a nutshell. We're just trying to make sure that we can still provide for the citizens.
Councillor Haas?
And are you talking going back to like your basic EMT
No, so
or
we,
lower than that?
so there's different levels of services.
Uh-huh.
Our lowest level is a basic EMT, that's correct.
Okay,
And then we have paramedic.
right.
Basically what we'd have the ability to do right now, if we don't have a medic on the truck can't roll. And we can't provide
right.
that service. So this would allow us to, even if we just had two basics, we could still respond to a call with an ambulance to provide care.
So you're not having difficulty getting even the basic EMTs? I know at one time it was hard to even get an EMT.
So,
Okay.
no,
Right, no,
there are
'cause that's-
times.
Right, because this is gonna roll into the next item, which is for recruitment.
Rolling along.
You know, what this really is, Eric already said it earlier, the flexibility. So we have so many planned events now. We wouldn't have to have paramedics on a truck to go to a football game. We wouldn't have to. We could have flexibility. If there was something bad happen, we put all of our ambulances in. All of our people are at a minimum licensed to the basic.
Mhm.
So there's no way that we'd ever be in violation of our licensing if we're at the lower tier. And very few places around the state are licensed to that level. I had that with me, but very few are, like 6 or 8 to do that. Everybody else is just permitted to like paramedic level, so it allows them to recognize and, you know.
And you're not allowed to have like a pool of EMTs that aren't necessarily firefighters.
We are not, no,
Okay.
not by the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay. That
So
answers-
I guess it's confusing to me, so I'm gonna assume that other people are confused about it. What's the difference between being licensed at one level but permitting at a different level?
So license means you have to have that level of care.
At a minimum, you
At a
have to
minimum,
required.
you have to have a even if that call does require a paramedic.
Okay,
So more than 60% of our calls don't require a paramedic to respond. So this allows us that if we didn't have a medic, we could still respond at the basic level and provide care.
So I assume, at the time of the call, it will be assessed to what level?
When the 911 call comes in, dispatch will do a
Assessment.
An
correct.
assessment.
And if it's a serious level call, they go by Alpha Bravo, Charlie Delta, and Echo. So certain calls would just warrant an ambulance, and the more serious calls would get an engine and an ambulance right now. So
Which is what we're currently doing already anyway.
right.
And there's usually a paramedic on the engine. right?
That's correct. That's what we're saying.
Thought so. Okay,
Multiple,
thank you.
So it seems
oftentimes.
like more efficient way of responding to
That's correct.
calls, I feel.
And again, we don't plan on changing our operational model. It's just gives us that flexibility if we have to. Right. So
and as in the memo, this requires a public notice. So there is gonna be the option for the public to give some feedback
Okay.
if there's concerns.
And when is that gonna go? After we make a
Depending on your approval
motion?
tonight.
Okay,
It has to be posted for 30 days per the rules of Maine EMS. And then all public comment would go right to Maine EMS in Augusta for their licensing team to review.
okay. So it's quite a process. Okay. Good. Any questions?
I was
Councillor
gonna,
Leonard?
yeah, I was just gonna say that, just to put this in layman's terms for people who are watching at home, this is gonna make it so that, our, fire department is gonna be much more flexible with its personnel responding to calls that they need to be responded to, and also allows them to be more, logistically mobile so that nothing, it makes sure that all of our vehicles are able to mobilize and head out, and it doesn't ground anything. So this is gonna really ease the work on our fire department. So I know I don't vote on this committee, but I would highly support this if I were on it.
Sure.
I would
Yes.
move.
Do you have a second? Yeah, thank you. So it's smooth, I guess. Thank you. So what's the next one on the agenda?
Jeremy Ogden is our new EMS chief, and Jeremy's gonna take this one tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, so next item on the agenda is to partner with Eastern Maine Community College to host emergency medical technician EMT class. And we always have required and will continue to require everybody become an EMT. That's 90% of what the department does. So currently, right now, we can't hire anybody. We've chosen not to hire anybody that doesn't have their EMT. That hasn't really been a problem until the past 8 months or so, when the college has stopped hosting EMT classes due to a shortage of instructors. We've always had a really good working relationship with the college. We send students, multiple students there a year for different classes. And they've reached out to us to become a partner in the educational site. We have qualified instructors within the department, and this would be funded entirely by the college's workforce development grant. So the cost of payroll for our instructors, tuition for anybody we have would be covered by the grant. We would bring the employee on as a city employee until they're through the EMT class, and then in which case they'd become a fire department employee because they have the certification now. So it's gonna be similar to what the guys did for the community connector for the CDL.
The CDL.
So that's kind of what we're hoping to do to help with recruitment a little bit, so we can bring people on that have some fire experience and haven't had the opportunity to go get their EMT license just because of, it's a very intensive program. It's a 150-hour program. Some are done, 5 days a week, some are spread over 4 months. So financially and flexibility, it's been challenging for people to retain those courses. So we're looking to take that on and hopefully help with recruitment.
And they reached out to you.
Yes.
That
We
makes
have-
even
we have a letter.
Yes, we do have a letter.
Yeah, so awesome.
I have a question, please, about this. So, do you try to go and visit high schools and talk to students about this as a possible career and what it takes to join your team? I mean, because I know they do this at the airport, so I know, to pilots and, to join.
So we have done a couple of programs, the fire science program through Southern Maine Community College and Smith Community College. We've attended their job fairs to try to attract candidates that way. Through the Conflict County Fire Chiefs, we've had a representative through, I think every high school in the county actually, just trying to draw attention for the local municipality as well. So, yeah.
So the work is there.
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Any questions?
And if you have any suggestions of place for us to go, we'll go too.
I mean, that's what I was thinking about, high school, because that's
Yeah.
when students start to think about, what they want to do after graduation. So that's why, but
I can think of some kindergarten schools for you to go to.
Yeah.
And the benefit is not only are we going to have employees, but it gives us an opportunity to recruit more. And also we're helping put more EMTs back in surrounding communities. So again, help us in the workload for everybody's.
Currently, there's 100 applications in for an EMT class that doesn't exist. So this class would be for 16 people. We've reserved, participating, we reserve 6 spots. We can reserve more for our own people if we want to. But this will at least put 16 more EMTs out in the field.
I know at one time, the hospital was looking at requiring anybody that wanted to be a nurse tech had to first be an EMT, which helped back then with recruiting. There are some medical assisting students though that don't stay in that program, but will go into an EMT program. So
Hopefully this will get you up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Back to your question, their Maine Municipal has been looking at that they need to work on recruiting earlier, that we need to, so young students can understand that there are careers in the municipalities. I was at a meeting a while ago where that's being discussed, and hope that they're gonna be able to put a program together that way as well.
yeah, and keep those, young adults, when they're young adults in Bangor, in town.
In Maine.
In Maine, not only in
absolutely.
Bangor.
Yeah.
Prioritize Bangor.
Great. Yeah, there's, any more questions, anything?
Did we move that? We don't.
No, we have not
We
moved that
already
yet.
did just for the previous one. Okay, thank you so much, I guess.
We should do.
We
Thank you.
should have a
Yes, we
motion.
should have
I will
some.
make a
We
motion.
should,
Second.
There you go.
okay,
Just
so,
to cover.
so what do I say?
For us to move
It's
forward with the program.
Okay, okay.
We'll keep you informed.
Good.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Have a good night.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you.
We have one more.
Do you guys still have a relationship with UTC too, Tom?
Not like we used to,
Yeah.
I just met with,
Let's get the
person
hand.
of the, EMT, I saw them a few weeks ago, person running that program, but we need to reach out again.
EMTC or UTC?
I was at EMCC.
All right, I'm talking UTC.
I was saying, because I met the
Gotcha.
director of that program over there, and we talked about how we need to get together. I think both of you, or Jeremy, you know that person.
The instructor used to be one of our retired employees.
Richie Palmer ran that
Yeah,
program for
Richie.
years.
Yeah.
He did, yeah, he did. So,
Okay.
good night, everybody. Thank
Good
you.
night, thank you, thanks. So we get to the last item on the agenda, Assistant City Manager updates. David.
I was gonna
okay.
say what he had. I brought extras in case.
I only have one. Courtney only
Okay.
told me about one.
Okay.
She did want to, give the committee an update. The housing officer
Mhm.
position has been posted.
Right.
I did check with HR. We have 6 applications in that have been returned so far, through this afternoon. So
Oh.
that is in process, and I suspect she'll be giving you future updates as we progress.
That's
Till what
wonderful. 6, that's good.
Yeah.
Really wonderful. Okay.
Along that same line, later this week, it's, the homelessness position will be out.
Mhm.
Also on Gov Ops, I think we needed to come back to the committee on the off-site marijuana. We had proposed an ordinance
Oh,
based
yeah.
on one direction and we really seemed to go in another, so we just need to come back and get some clarity about what the process is to move forward. And as far as looking ahead, so in October, folks were here from Bangor Area Comprehensive Transportation System, SPACS, to talk about our climate action plan. So it's likely you're gonna see a final plan come forward sometime in January or February, I think is the time frame. And I think, we don't really have action items yet on our agendas, but we do have our sort of priority setting session next week. So I think that's gonna kind of kick off the work plan for additional items coming forward. So I just didn't want people to think that anything we have done or talked about has gone by the wayside. It hasn't. It's just the point to restart everything.
Is that on the 12th?
Yes.
So with the offsite marijuana sales, I thought we agreed on not to proceed with that. Right? I mean, if
That
you
was-
remember.
There were,
was
there
the-
were a number of votes that, myself included, that did not like that, form of legislation. I'll put it this way, there might be a council now that might want to put that forward and have the same type of motion as before, but, I was not in general in favor of, not allowing the sale of, marijuana on sites if alcohol is also allowed on those sites. So my vote was always going to be no for that. But if there's a dynamic on
And that's
council,
what we just had the one vote. I chaired that committee, I think, at the time, and we just had the one vote. And then it was I don't remember what the vote was, but it was shot it down. So it never went to the full council.
It did go to.
Oh, it did.
did.
Oh, because
So
the committee
we
was
got-
actually had voted in
Right, so
favor.
at the
And
committee,
at
we
the
got
council,
direction to
it
do it
went-
one
that's right.
way, and then at council, the
Exactly, I
final
know,
vote was
yeah,
another way.
yeah.
So we need to come back
Yeah.
Okay,
and tie that
No,
back up.
yeah.
That's all.
okay, sure.
Because if we're moving forward with it, that's fine, but we need a process.
Mhm.
Sure.
And if we're not,
Right now,
that's
we don't have
fine, but we
anything.
need to,
So right
So-
now, without anything in place, can somebody,
no,
see, if you don't have, you have to have
Correct.
something in
you have
place
to have
either way.
something in place.
Yeah.
You either allow
Yeah,
it
or
and you
not
have a
allow, yeah.
process, or you don't.
Yeah.
So we'll be circling back on that. Yep.
Okay, I guess if there is no any other
So I'm
questions,
gonna
any
need to
concerns,
myself.
we
Yeah.